We've reached Chapter 2, in which Marth is so excited to get back into the action that he runs across the ocean. Yeah, he's just that ready for this. He's been waiting, man. He is excited. He ain't taking shit from Liquid. He's just gonna run right across it. He doesn't need a boat. And then that immediately changed, and now that first statement really isn't true now that there are pirates here. So do you see a boat anywhere, or even a port? See, that's proof that Marth just ran across the ocean and also carried his entire party with him. And what do you know, it's those mercenaries of Talis. And yes, indeed, those are 4 units right there, and we do get them all at once. Of course, they are all identical units because most of them are the same class. But first, we'll start with a unique unit of the group. Ogma here is the leader of the Talis mercenaries, and he's also a mercenary unit himself. Mercenaries are sword-wielding units that generally have pretty good stats overall. I can't really think of any particular weakness that the class shares other than the low resistance, but hey, in this game, what else is new? Their strengths are generally HP, strength, and defense, and Ogma mostly fits that. He has a fantastic HP growth, some pretty good strength growths, and unfortunately he doesn't quite fit the defense growth. Still though, his growths are pretty good overall, and from experience I will say that Ogma always turns out pretty well, so I would definitely suggest using him. Next off we have the 3 fighter units. Fighters are axe-wielding units that have high HP and strength, and sometimes some pretty high speed, though that can vary, and they almost always have low defense. Barst here is kinda the middle of the 3 fighter units we get. He might not have quite the same strengths as the other 2 fighters, but he doesn't quite get the same exaggerated weaknesses that they do. Plus he has some pretty good strength, so I would definitely say that he's one of the better fighter units. Of course, I also do like Board. Board has some fantastic HP and strength, so he does fit the class itself. Unfortunately, not only does he have low defense, but he has some very low speed growths as well, meaning he's not the most useful unit. Still though, his skill is also pretty good, so some criticals will also make up for it, provided you kill everything fast enough, of course. And lastly, we have Cord, who is probably my least favorite of the fighters. His HP isn't really that good, his strength is the lowest, though it's still fairly high. And other than that, his stats really aren't that memorable. I mean, he's got some good speed, but other than that, nothing about him really stands out to me, so of the 3, he can be useful, but I wouldn't recommend him as highly. And not only do we start with those 4 characters, we can also recruit 2 more from the enemy ranks, including Castor, who should be a familiar face if you've ever seen the Icania Saga chapters. So it is nice seeing him again. Not so much seeing him on the enemy side, but hey, at least he's here. And we also have Darros. Now, Darros will actually just walk up to Marth and talk to him. He won't really try to attack anybody, so he's not much of a threat. Castor, on the other hand, will try to kill you. And unfortunately, he's a bit dangerous because you have to recruit him with Seda. You can probably see what the problem there is. And it's not just him, of course, it's also his other archer buddy, so it's gonna be hard to approach him. Now, starting off, you don't really want to send too many people up north. Just Marth and maybe 1 other unit to take care of the units up there. You definitely want to take out the thief just so he doesn't slip by and destroy the village over there. Well, that's rude. Honestly, you can't possibly have a change of heart. Who are you to judge, random NPC? Honestly, you're just some random guy living here, under attack from pirates all the time, and, one says, maybe I'll wash my hands of pirating. You don't believe him? Is it because he's still red? He's still technically part of the enemy side? Ugh. Some NPCs, the nerve of them. Other than that, there are some tough units. Well, not so much that they're tough, more so that there are a lot of them on the other side. Of course, we do have Ogma and 3 Axe Fighters, so Ogma has an advantage over most of the units in this chapter. And the other 3 units, well, they don't necessarily have an advantage, but they're not at a disadvantage either. And other than the 2 archers who are gonna be a pain to recruit one of them and just get rid of the other, there aren't any archers, so I would suggest keeping Seda in the danger zone a little bit, just like right at the edge, because of course she does use lances, so she's probably going to take some hits, but now that we have a healer, we don't really need to worry about that all that much. We still probably don't have a plentiful supply of healing staves just yet, so we can't go crazy, but it's not that likely that we'll run out of uses or anything. You keep him safe and I'll keep you safe, and let's all just keep each other safe. Why don't we all just band together and keep ourselves from dying? That seems like the best idea. Kind of the entire point of having an army. That Ogma sure is a nice guy. So from time to time you can get those optional little dialogues there. Usually it's just between Marth and a person you just recruited. And when I say between, I mean it's just usually the other person talking to Marth and Marth not getting that many lines. Well, I don't see why not. You're in. Oh, and you've already got a chance to prove yourself. Come on, Darros, kick it! You're already fired. In fairness, I suppose Darros isn't the worst unit, but he doesn't really come at a good time. I mean, we got 3 fighters in this chapter alone, and despite being a different class, his stats are pretty similar to theirs. He's got high HP and strength, very low speed, and not that good defense. His skill really isn't all that good either. So, really he's outclassed by everyone else, and his only advantage is the fact that he can walk on water tiles, but I myself never really see much of a use for that, so I wouldn't really suggest using Darros, like, ever. You saw that miss, right? That was just sad. I would like to mention, though, that Fire Emblem 7 actually seems to take a little bit of inspiration from Darros. First thing, that game actually had a pirate crew by the name of the Darros, so there was that similar name, but that crew also had a member by the name of Darts, who does seem very similar to Darros, in that both characters have very boring designs, and both of them are pretty underwhelming, and I don't really like using them, because they're just kinda meh. At the very least, though, Darts kinda had an interesting backstory. It's nothing amazing, but, I mean, it's more interesting than Darros, so he had that going for him. Darros, on the other hand, doesn't really have much. It's just, oh, hey, I don't want to be a pirate anymore, so I'm gonna join up with you, even though you already have 3 axe wielders, and all of them are better than me. No matter what, I never really used Darros. I mean, even if I did choose 3 of the axe wielders we got in this chapter, which would be ridiculous because you don't need that many of them, I would still make him my last choice, even above Cord. I'm not taking Cord though, because again, Cord is my least favorite of the 3 fighters we get. I'm going to be taking Board along. Generally, my rule of thumb is, if there's a fighter with a hammer, then I'm going to start with them, because hammers are pretty good weapons. They actually are effective against heavily armored units, such as knights, so that's pretty useful, especially since knights generally use lances, so while a hammer might not be as sharp as an axe, it does still count as an axe weapon, and therefore it's got the weapon advantage, and also it just does a ton of damage to them because, of course, fighters have a lot of strength, and even though knights might have a lot of defense, yeah, it'll really wreck them thanks to that extra damage. The only thing you really have to worry about with hammers is the fact that when you start, they probably aren't going to be that accurate even with the weapon advantage. You're going to need a bit more skill before you can wield those all that well. Still though, whenever a fighter starts with a hammer, I just go with them because, hey, why not? I like the hammer weapon, and I'm usually pretty happy with how the hammer user turns out. Not that the hammer is necessarily a character-specific weapon or anything, it's just what I like using for that character. I would suggest using Ogma no matter what, though. As I said before, from experience I know that Ogma never really turns out too badly, and even though he might have that low speed growth, I generally find that he ends up getting enough speed that he can at least double most enemies. And of course he is very powerful and has a lot of HP, so he's gonna be a pretty good unit overall. In fact, he might be one of the best units you actually get in this chapter. And speaking of getting units, we could fly out and get Castor right now, but the problem is, if I do that, Sid would probably be shot out of the sky by that other archer that's kinda lagging behind right now. He's really the biggest issue here, so I want to draw those two guys in a little bit farther. I mean, it's not like Castor can accidentally get himself killed from a counterattack. That can sometimes be a danger. Not too often, because usually the enemy at least has enough speed to not get doubled, so as long as you can't take them out in a single turn, then you're pretty good and you can recruit them even if you hit them a little. Of course, that does mean they have to retreat when you recruit them, because the enemies will immediately try to go after them, but it's not too bad. But, of course, in Castor's case, he's not going to get damaged, which is pretty helpful. It means he can get right into the action, and unfortunately he's not fast enough to really double at the moment either. Which is unfortunate, because again, I don't get it, but archers in this game are usually pretty slow, and I don't care for that. And what the hell are you doing, Castor? Why are you going after the guy who can hit you? That is the dumbest idea. He can do damage, yeah, but you didn't do damage, and you got hit instead. Good going, idiot. Maybe you just wanted to get Gordon a level up, but I mean, the speed's nice, as I've repeatedly said by this point, but it's not really that much. I'd also like a bit of strength as well. Alright, well, I'm gonna take care of this guy. Thankfully he's off the fortress now, but apparently he's fast enough to not get doubled. Frickin' archers, man. Apparently mine are too slow, but this guy's pretty fast, so not even my Lord and Cavalier are able to actually do that much damage to him at a time. At least he couldn't linger on the fortress, because that was annoying. So now that the other archer isn't going to be too much of a problem, we can have Seda recruit Castor. Well, in fairness, I mean, Castor's not exactly an upstanding citizen. He's not a bad guy, but he does scheme a little bit. Just on the side, you know? Oh, and for some reason they decide to give him an accent in these games, so there's that. And now we have Castor with us. So one important thing to note about Castor is that he is a hunter and not an archer. Hunters have less defense than archers, and they also have a different promotion. Now, Castor here, with the exception of his HP, luck, and defense, has slightly better growth rates than Gordon does. And honestly, with the exception of luck, I don't think those lower growth rates matter all that much, because he really shouldn't be getting hit in the first place, so HP and defense don't matter that much to him, so all in all, I think the fact that Castor has slightly better odds to be faster and stronger than Gordon puts him just a bit above him overall. Okay, I swear that Castor is the last character you get in this chapter. It's just, you'd think that it would be difficult to raise an army in times like this, but no, Marth just steps foot on the continent and already he has 6 volunteers just right off the bat. I mean, 2 of them were enemies, yeah, but it was still pretty easy. I mean, I guess they just wanted to... Really, Rise? Really? It's no wonder you're not going to be a healer for long. Anyway, as I was saying, yeah, they do give you 3 repeats, but they do want you having a lot of units at this point. And having a lot of units does help. These middle islands can be a little bit difficult just because this is really the first time that the enemies actually are at least somewhat aggressive. Because before this point it's just been everyone just stays in place until you attack them for the most part. But here, those two cavaliers are actually just a little bit dangerous. Because they will actually come after you in the middle of the islands. Thankfully though, those pirates, other than the two archers over there, or hunters rather, they are different units, but yeah. The pirates are the only ones that don't charge you, so while the cavaliers and the archers will charge you, chances are they're too far ahead to really attract the attention of these pirates over here, so it's not going to be too many units at once. You can probably handle this. Of course, I'm already getting people ganging up on board, and hey, what do you know, I say that the axe wielders aren't even aggressive, and one just starts walking right towards me. Shows me to open my mouth ever, but yeah. Overall, though, it's fine if you take this a bit slowly, just as long as you manage to kill those thieves first, the ones at the beginning, because if they slip by you, then yeah, they'll probably destroy the village fairly easily. Because there's a lot of space to cover and you're going to be fighting for most of it. Thankfully though, this isn't going too slowly for me. Taking a few hits, but all in all, I can progress pretty easily through here. And I did have to hold back a little bit just because I could have gone after that archer, but at the same time that does put most of my units at risk, and I don't want to do that. Minimize risks as long as they're going to be doing a fair amount of damage. Now, since you have some spare units, that is actually helpful for getting that armor shop and house taken care of, because I don't really need Jagan, so I'm going to be sending him downwards, and in fact I think I'm going to be sending most of my units that I'm not going to be using just to the south, just so they're out of the way. Come on, random villager. Keep up with me, man, I've already gone over that. At this point, you're probably going to have plenty of units that you don't really want to use. I say probably, even though that's more or less a definitely, because we got 3 fighters. You'll rarely, if ever, have 3 of the same unit in your team overall. I mean, I usually have 2 cavaliers, and that's it. Nothing much more than that. So pretty much just pick whatever advantage you want. If you want more speed, then go with Gourd. If you want more strength, then go with Board. Or if you want both, then go with Barst, but you don't need all of them. So this shop's got a few steel weapons. I would be wary of using steel weapons this early on, especially the steel axe. Generally, axe users aren't quite as accurate at the start of the game, as shown off by Darros, who missed his first and more than likely only attack that'll ever get off. So, yeah, I generally stick with just normal iron weapons for that purpose, because they're always really accurate, and they're doing enough damage, right? Like, Ogma's the only one using a steel weapon at the moment, and that's just to get just a tiny little bit of extra damage so he can actually finish enemies off. I was temporarily an enemy, and also I was an idiot when I was an enemy. Just went right for the person who could attack me back. So really, I'd forgive you even if you did attack Gordon, but you were completely ineffective, so I forgive you even harder. Oh, very nice. That was an unnecessary critical, but hey, I don't mind that Board got that off. It was pretty rad. I would give that probably a 9. Now, you're definitely going to want to go to that village, which does take Marth a bit out of the way. That's why I don't really like the fact that Marth has to be the one to go to villages, because he's got to go to the village, and then he has to go all the way... Okay, it's not a huge distance, but you get what I mean, right? Like, sometimes the village is out of the way, and that just takes Marth out of the fighting. At least he can't promote, so... There's that, so it's not like you can waste that much experience, but it's still annoying. Whoa, 5,000 gold? I would have brought her home unharmed if you hadn't offered me the gold, but hey, I'll take the gold as well, I guess. So see what I mean? I said it earlier, but Shadow Dragon really likes giving you money. Just barely started our adventure and boom, we got 5,000 gold to spend stuff on. So I could buy more stuff if I wanted to, but I think I've got most of what I want. I don't know, I could have Jagan go back to the armory. That's all you're good for, Jagan. Right, so this guy's going to be a bit more problematic this time around because he does have that hand axe. So Castor's not safe from him. At least Castor can do decent damage, though. Sometimes, especially in this game, your archers just flat out don't do that much damage against bosses. Nuh-uh. I think he's a pirate! Not quite sure, but he... Oh, whoa! Nice! Good going, Castor! Now, that's not an unnecessary critical. Well, that certainly makes my job easier. Of course, now I'd have to decide who gets the most experience. Because since he's got less health, I don't need to attack him as much to kill him. I think, I definitely want Seda to get the kill, I think, overall. But I'd be fine with Board getting a little extra experience. He does need a bit of a boost at the beginning. I mean, he just dodged a shot, but still, he needs a bit of experience, I swear. Well, no matter what, I'm not going to have a very high hit chance, so... At least I hit him. That went surprisingly well, actually. I mean, 69% chance to hit him, not that good. But he came through in the end, or she came through in the end, rather. I'm using Seda. And we can just barely get onto the tile. Anyone else want anything done? Anybody? Armory visit? It's gonna be a few more chapters until you get a good supply of iron weapons, so I would like to buy a few more just to be on the safe side. Now we can finish the chapter. Quit looking at me. It's creepy. I didn't say that, but sure, I'll roll with it. It's kind of their thing. Oh, Navarre. We know that guy. But why is he with bandits? Okay, actually, in fairness, I could see Navarre being cutthroat.